The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is the absolute worst name in cinematic history. It killed my voice. That's how bad it was. We'll get to how it ranks in this entire Conjuring universe. I don't know how they've made this many films since 2013, but they found a way. And I was super stoked for the first one when it came out, really enjoyed it, so I've checked out every entry, but today we're gonna talk about the best and the worst and everything in between of the Conjuring movie universe thing. Be sure to comment down below what your favorite in the franchise is, what your least favorite in the franchise is, how you rank them yourself, and we will just hop right into it. We go from best to worst here because I feel like less people get mad at me when I do that with a franchise.
My name is Bill Wilkins, and I'm 72 years old.
I rewatched a couple scenes the other day. My roommates were watching it in the family room, so I sat down for a little bit, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did when I saw it in the theater. When I saw it in the theater, I thought it was the best studio horror film I've seen in a very long time. Still a very good movie though. The thing I like about The Conjuring 2 and The Conjuring is, yeah, it gives the Warrens some time to shine, but it really just focuses on the families that are dealing with the demon early on in the beginning, more so than most of these kinds of movies, I feel like. Like, the Warrens don't feel like the main characters necessarily of the first two Conjuring movies, and The Conjuring 2 maybe a bit more in the first one, but I like how all these families usually get their time to get possessed by demons. The nun scene is one of, fuck nuns. Nuns suck. This movie just confirmed it to me even more that they're the worst. The painting scene is one of the most well done horror scenes I've ever seen in a horror movie. James Wan, I love the guy. The fact that he's still delivering this kind of horror quality at this stage in his career is pretty impressive. I also love the scene where the ghost is transforming in the background that's out of focus. A lot of well done, thought out, interesting scares here. I think the child acting is much better in this one than the first Conjuring movie. I think the overall production design is even better in this one compared to the first movie. There are a couple things that weren't as scary to me, like the crooked man. They do like some sort of stop motion CGI looking thing. Didn't really work for me as much. But overall, a really great studio horror film, and definitely the best in the franchise in my opinion.
I'm in the mirror standing behind you.
I was so excited for the first Conjuring when it came out. If you don't remember, the hype was that it was rated R just because of how scary it was. There was no real gore, there was no like sex scenes or anything like that. It was just pure psychological horror that was apparently too terrifying for 13-year-olds. And even though I rewatched it a couple years ago and didn't love it as much as I did the first time I saw it, I still think in terms of recent horror movies, still one of the better ones. The entire prologue sequence is one of the best openings for any horror movie, for sure. I mean, the whole Annabelle sequence is the most terrifying Annabelle is ever gonna be at this point. We'll get to her entire trilogy very soon, don't worry. This and The Conjuring 2, honestly, they don't feel like they're a breath of fresh air necessarily because it's air we've been used to breathing in this genre for so long, but I do think it's handled by somebody that really has a passion for wanting to tell a story like this, because like the second one, there are a couple scenes that will always stick with me besides the prologue. I mean, the clap game is a genius way to use horror storytelling. I think The Conjuring is a very solid movie. It's not as solid as 2 though. I think the child acting in particular here is really cringy, doesn't work as well. And even though I do like it, I've seen it twice now, I never really have a desire to go back and watch it again. It is a solid film. They're definitely the two best Conjuring movies in, I guess, the Conjuring trilogy.
Annabelle?
I thought there was no shot in hell Annabelle Creation, aka Annabelle 2, could have been good. And this one is good, I'd say. It's got that director that is like a YouTuber, David F. Sandberg. Seems like a nice guy. I like him. And what works about this movie is it made the Annabelle doll pretty scary once again, because I think what the first one did so wrong was it kind of made it a little funny. And it has a lot of good setups for scares. Like, there's a disabled girl that sounds really bad when you say it. Having a girl being like thrown out of her wheelchair and her having to crawl away from Annabelle, who's just like the biggest bully I've ever seen. In terms of horror filmmaking, pretty entertaining. You have the Mr. Rogers puppet show. Those types of puppets scared the fuck out of me as a kid. It's a solid, fun movie. It doesn't do anything wrong. It doesn't do anything extraordinary, but it's a good time. Not the best time, but a pretty good time.
Sister, please. This way. Hello?
There's a lot of people that think this is the worst one. I think you're slightly bugging for sure. I think The Nun has a lot of thematic story problems that just really don't work. But in terms of a horror movie, I think there's a lot that does work here. The one where they're talking to the nun and you could maybe make out the nun's face, but you can't really see it. That scene is nuts to me. I don't think anyone ever talks about it. It's one of the best horror scenes I've seen in a long time. I absolutely love how they handled that. You have the nun coming out of the water. You got the nun throwing other nuns. The movie is kind of dumb, but I think like production design wise, I felt like I was in this time era. I thought the setting of the film really worked. I think the nun itself is still the scariest thing that's come out of the Conjuring universe in terms of the actual character. I'm biased because I hate nuns and old people, and I don't want to see it ever again. This is another one. Like, they say this and The Nun are the two worst in the entire universe. I think you guys are still bugging. Curse of La Llorona, which I finally got right, I'm not the whitest person out here, has a couple scares that I think really work. It's pretty similar to The Nun, just a little less good than The Nun. When you have La Llorona playing with the girl's hair, that was creepy. La Llorona herself, when you see like the CGI and the makeup and it's like close up, I don't think it's the scariest thing ever, but her presence could be felt in a lot of the scenes where there's build-up, more than most of these lame studio horror movies. I do think it is hilarious how they try and implement this into the Conjuring universe. I knew this was a Conjuring movie before going into it. I had that spoiled a long time ago, but I didn't know how it connected. And when they just show literally footage from the first Annabelle movie, it was the lamest thing I've ever seen. I laughed out loud to myself in my room.
Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
I did not expect me to dislike it this much. I should have known better though, because The Devil Made Me Do It is such a terrible name for a movie. Forget it being its own thing of like this investigative kind of thing that doesn't want to be a horror movie. Forget that. It's just the setup of the first two. Like the first two have a very basic, pretty much identical formula. The third one, all it had to do was be directed by James Wan, and it just is so boring. Absolutely nothing happens in this movie. The devil does absolutely nothing for 2 hours. And it's weird because I was actually kind of into it in the first like 5 minutes. I think it has a pretty strong opening in this exorcism of this child, and you got the shower curtain and like you got the 3 fingers coming off and you got a plate flying at a priest's head. It's very cool. And then the movie just doesn't do anything interesting for the rest of the time. There's like an actual villain character human thing in this one, I guess, and she's cursing people. These aren't based on true stories anymore. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I did like the ending footage of like whatever exorcism they were doing. Like the actual tape of that is way scarier than the entirety of this movie times 10. I saw this in the theater the same day with my best friend growing up, Kit. We saw this and Gone Girl. This one was not as good as Gone Girl. Annabelle's just a waste of time. Like, I knew it was probably not gonna be good, but I had been such a big fan of The Conjuring at the time, and Annabelle was one of the reasons for that. Like, the doll scenes in the first one are absolutely terrifying, and it dropped the ball big time. Everyone knows this movie's bad. I don't know anybody that actually really likes this movie. The only thing I remember being like, this is kind of cool but also funny is when like the doll starts floating and starts walking. I don't know. That image is always in my mind. Not the best. Definitely far from the best. It's one of the worst I've seen in quite a while, but it's not as bad as this one.
Can I speak to Annabelle?
I'm sorry?
You need to give her a soul, dear.
There's a lot of people that like this one. Good for you. You know, keep enjoying life. Give me the key to enjoying everything in this world. Annabelle Comes Home is such a fuck you of a low-budget horror movie made purely for profit. I've never seen a movie made this cheap on purpose, I feel like. The only lighting setup they have is from like this little toy that changes colors. It's like you're in a frat kid's LED bedroom. Characters do stupid things. There's a character named Bob's Got Balls. That tells you enough. I thought I was going to talk more about Annabelle Comes Home, but Bob's Got Balls, I think it sums up every point I have. Comment down below. Let me know what your favorite in the entire franchise is, what your least favorite in the entire franchise is. Whatever it is, let me know. I want to hear it. And this is Chase with Chilling with Chase, and I'll catch you in the next one.